Joining us now for Word Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi. Good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Rubin. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Would you believe I've gone from the warmth of being in your presence in Lagos to now being in the autumnal breeze of London? Life comes at you very fast. A very good morning to you all. Let me tell you about what is happening around the world. We will start in the United States with Kamala Harris. Once again, she sat down in front of Fox News for the first time. She sat down in front of Brett Byers, who by some estimations is one of the more moderate voices within the Fox News team. That being said, it was still quite a fiery exchange between the two of them. That being that Kamala Harris for the first time wasn't sitting in front of friendly fire. Let's take a listen to what some highlights of the interview looked like.
I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you,
now,
just a number, do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
it's
an
a rough
immigration
estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer. Frankly, exhausted of Brett.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam Vice President.
You and I both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
people have become,
but listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me.
Well, I don't know about you all, but I feel like that was the first time I've seen Kamala Harris as gra-gra as she was yesterday. She definitely was trading fire. It was a lot more argumentative in a way that we haven't seen Kamala Harris before. And I think that it's actually important to see political candidates in these types of situations because not everything is going to be friendly fire. Not everything is going to go in your direction. They discussed immigration. Of course, they talked about Donald Trump and his leadership. But what was really interesting in the last bit of that clip there, they were talking feel pretty undecided still, are unsure of the direction of the country. And with Kamala Harris in the somewhat deputy driving seat now, it is reflective of what a Kamala presidency will look like. So for the first time, we did get to see Kamala Harris really uncomfortable, very argumentative, and perhaps a little shaky in this interview. As we heard her mention Donald Trump, I will bring him into the conversation too. Donald Trump, as it stands now, we are again getting ever closer to the election, and there have been reports now that Donald Trump isn't being forthcoming with his health. You know, a few months ago, the topic of conversation between Joe Biden when he was still in the race and Donald Trump was the fact that Joe Biden is too old, he doesn't have the mental wherewithal, he doesn't have the gravitas needed to continue to lead the American people. But now, age is now shifting to Donald Trump. Should he win the election come November 5th, he will be the oldest person in US history to assume office. Now, as historic as that may or may not be, it also breeds questions about his health because there hasn't been a lot of specific information. Sure, he had his doctor come out and say and give him a clean bill of health, but in terms of specifics, we don't know what his actual health is like, how much he weighs, what he feels like on a day-to-day basis. Is he on any medication, especially after the assassination attempt? What type of medication was he prescribed? Is he still on it? Is there any issue with his cholesterol or hypertension? It does seem as though that this is also information that many people would like to hear, and as yet Donald Trump has not shared it. Dr. Rubin, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts before we move on to the papers.
Very quick. I think in terms of age, now age is a factor in American elections. In the UK, where you are this morning, they actually don't talk about age. The average age of American presidents has been about 55. But in recent times, that has come up again. But we've had the old American presidents. By the time Biden completes his term, he will be 82 years. Before him, you had Ronald Reagan, you have James Buchanan, you have Eisenhower, you have, many other presidents who, were advanced in age in that position. The thing about Donald Trump is that if he were to win, he will be in his 80s as president. And there have been concerns about his, health reports. You recall that during COVID, there was a report that, he was obese, obesity, overweight. But this time around, his doctors are saying, no, he's very fit. He's, his weight is in order. He doesn't have cancer-related issues. He doesn't have cholesterol issues. But we have seen on many occasions President Trump acting his age, missing names, missing cues, rambling sometimes, and going off the teleprompter and just simply rambling. And that is why that is on the table. 59-year-old Kamala Harris has put her own records out there to say that she has no cancer. The only thing she has is probably allergies. And she has only undergone surgery once when she had surgery for, was it appendicitis? Appendicitis. So, as I've said, age is a factor, but would Biden come clean? As for the interview yesterday, a number of key issues. It was an intense, contentious, problematic interview with Kamala Harris trying to get her points through and saying, let me finish. May I be allowed to finish my point? And the other man also double-checking her. Now, last week, she had a number of interviews, Call Me Daddy, and in other platforms, Late Night Show, and all of that, The View. But this one is unscripted. Our objective is to appeal to undecided voters and also to let people see our own side on a conservative, contrarian platform. And I think at the end of the day, both parties got what they wanted. Kamala Harris was able to answer a number of questions about whether, she will be a copy of President Biden. And she said no, she has her own independent views about what she thinks about undocumented immigrants who have been killing young American women, which was the point that Bear was pushing. About using, taxpayers' money to fund undocumented immigrants and transgender persons in prison. And whether she thinks Trump is fit for office. Of course, she says she doesn't think she's fit for office. But I summarize now by drawing our attention to what, after the conversation with Brett Baer, which was for 26 minutes, what Fox News then did. They then brought Donald Jr., Eric Jr., they brought Stephen Miller. These were Donald Trump people to do post-debate analysis. And of course, they were not fair to Kamala Harris. And then, of course, they kept putting in there, Kamala Harris continues her narrative, whatever, against Donald Trump. So they played the game. They got their constituencies. Whether it was a tight rope, walking a tight rope for Kamala Harris, is for other people to decide. But at least she showed some confidence by going to the enemy's den. Because Brett Baer, who was even considered the least conservative as political editor in Fox News, was not as friendly as others thought. But the interview was not scripted. So some credit for her to go to the lion's den.
Canada's comment?
Thank you, Dr. Rubin. Thank you very much for your comments. Rufai Ayo, I will come to you too, but let us move on to our newspapers. Let's take those newspapers and then we'll come back to you for some more comments. As ever, we'll begin with the front page of This Day newspaper. And This Day this morning is looking at comments coming from Central Bank Governor Olayemi Cardoso. He was speaking at the recently concluded Nigerian Economic Summit in Abuja, and he said that he believed that taming inflation is a key priority for for this government at this time. He also talked about the need for people to again have a better understanding of what is going on, what the priorities are for this government, for him as the leader of the central bank, and moving forward, what the Nigerian people can expect from the economy. Moving on now to the Daily Sun, and the Daily Sun stays with the Nigerian economy, and it quotes the World Bank's warning against another price hike. It's saying that the price of petrol specifically should not be raised again, and should it be raised again, it will reverse any gains that came from the removal of the subsidy. So it will be interesting to see whether or not the federal government heed the World Bank, heed the many lists of people who have added to this chorus to stop another petrol hike and even reverse the ones that.
All right, so I would reconnect with Adefemi very shortly. However, Rufai, you're going to say something about the US elections.
Couple of things. I actually think that this was one of Kamala's best interviews, because she went to a very hostile environment and did very well, despite the fact that Brett Baer tried to play a lot of games. What were the games? Interjections, trying to distract her from the point where she was making. That's why she was saying, oh, let me, get my point in and all of that. But she stood her ground. And the first question was on immigration, which he deliberately tried to distract her by saying that, okay, 6 Democrats voted against that immigration bill. But I said, no, the most important question was the fact that Trump went to tell most of other people in his Republican Party not to even endeavor in the first place. Despite the fact that 6 Democrats voted against the bill, does not stop the bill from going through if it has a bipartisan support. Yeah. So she talked about the fact that Trump denied the right of that bipartisan support. He also went ahead and she talked about, I think the only tough nut for her in that place was when she was saying, what would you do different from Biden? But she really stuck her neck out that I'm bringing a new form of leadership. And in fact, she even laid the context by saying that I'm bringing a new form of leadership for the last 10 years of leadership, which also includes Trump's politics of divisiveness and taking people away from the core issues. Brett deliberately did not talk about abortion because he knows that was a strong point. He didn't allow her harp up much on the fact of the economy, which she could have talked about her plan, but she got some of her plans in, what she wanted to do for small businesses and all of that. Even in the last interchange, when he asked her the question from CBS, talking about, okay, Femi, we'll come back to you now.
Wonderful, wonderful. They were trying to disrupt us. Can you believe it? Even though we're all the way and separated by continents, there's nothing that's going to stop us from continuing to discuss our newspapers. So I had talked about the front page of This Day and how Olayemi Cardoso, central bank governor, had been quoted as saying that tackling inflation is a key priority. He made those comments at the Nigerian Economic Summit in Abuja, which took place earlier this week. And then moving on to the Daily Sun stays with the Nigerian economy, and it looks at quoting the World Bank and how the World Bank has warned against another petrol price increase in Nigeria. It says that should there be another petrol price increase, it will reverse any gains that were made when the fuel subsidy was removed. So it will be interesting to see if that advice will be taken on or not. Moving on to the New Telegraph, and the New Telegraph is looking again at one of the knock-on effects of inflation in terms of fuel pricing, in terms of food. The knock-on effects of that inflation issue is hardship. So the front page of the New Telegraph looks at hardship and looks at representatives telling the federal government that they need to reverse these increases, especially in the price of fuel, in cooking gas, in food, and also tackle what we're seeing, which is just major inflation in the economy as it stands now. The Punch leads with oil marketers actually, and it's saying that those marketers are planning to import more fuel to address this shortfall in supply. Between the Dangote refinery and the NNPCL, these oil marketers says there's just simply not enough fuel to meet domestic demand. So they are going to be taking matters into somewhat of their own hands and importing more fuel to address this shortfall. And then if we take a political turn now and take a look at the front page of The Guardian, the front page of The Guardian has the latest twists and turns across Nigeria's political parties. So you can see in the front page, you've got the leaders of the Labour Party. You can see Peter Obi there. Also, definitely the People's Democratic Party, which is, as we all know, been having a lot of infighting issues. And then also the new Nigeria People's Party is also represented on the front page of The Guardian this morning in this discussion about political crises befalling Nigerian political parties. The Daily Independent now It leads with the awful news out of Jigawa with this tanker explosion, this accident. At least 140 people are believed to have been killed and have been buried in a mass burial. The federal government has dispatched a delegation to the site and has also released emergency funding. There'll also be a review of fuel transport safety protocols across the states. Definitely terrible, terrible news there, which is also picked up by the Daily Trust. The Daily Trust picture story actually has images from that mass burial. And again, more information that one person is believed to have lost 4 children in that explosion, 5 are Maljuris, and a policeman, all believed to be. On to the Daily Nation of Kenya. And Rigathi Gachagua is again holding on for dear life. We're getting ever closer to that 3-judge panel releasing their formal judgment in terms of whether or not he's been successfully in being able to stave off the Senate from taking his job from him and keeping him, he hopes, in as Kenya's deputy president. And then if we move on to our British dailies, the Daily Express has UK Chancellor Rachel Reeves accused of inventing this black hole. You'll remember that ever since coming into office under the Labour government, Rachel Reeves has said that there's a £40 billion black hole in public finances that needs to be addressed. But Tory leaders, senior Tory leaders, are saying that she has invented that it's a figment of her imagination, and she brought that up just so she can justify hammering taxpayers in her first budget. Interesting to hear what you have to say about that. And then lastly, the Financial Times has a story that says that more graduates are fighting for less jobs. A story we've been hearing over and over, but this time there's the issue and the interference of artificial intelligence and how that is just changing the scope of the labour market, of the recruitment process, and it's...
Okay. Femi, can you hear me? Okay. So, like I was making the point about the interview, then on the last point, where they were talking to her about, what's her departure from Biden, she talked about the fact that she was bringing in a new form of leadership and all of that. Then also Brett Baier tried to press her to apologize to the families of those that were killed because they had not taken a stance on border control. And in fact, she empathized like a leader was going to do. In the end, it was constantly about him, Brett Baier, trying to say every time that 79% of the country are saying that they're really interested in Trump and that the nation is not doing well under you. But she stated that point, which was a very tough balancing act for her, that yes, I can't totally pivot away from what Biden has done, but I'm bringing a new form of leadership, which is going to bring about, some difference in the system. And Trump's age is a problem. He needs to release his medical records. The last time I checked, I think he was on Cresol and a couple of other drugs to be able to limit his cholesterol and all of that. But definitely they need a reprisal on that. But as regards the newspaper review, real quickly, a very sad one for Gachagua. I think the deputy president of Kenya should just kiss it goodbye, because I don't think anything is going to save him. Ruto, I'm sure, is already planning for his exit at this point in time. If not, I'm sure he already has picks for people that are going to replace him. I think it's the end of the road for him already. So it's not a date with destiny for him.
Very quickly, the UK papers, Rachel Reeves. It's almost like the Tories coming back to say, we told you so. Remember that Rishi Sunak, former Prime Minister under the Conservatives, had said that the Labour Party was going to introduce at least a £2,000 tax increase on the British people, and so now they are claiming or accusing the Labour Party of coming up, that's under Rachel Reeves as Chancellor of the Exchequer, of coming up with a bogus black hole. We've talked about this black hole a number of times. £40 billion needed to be plugged, and part of that is the justification for raising taxes. Only this week we talked about also an increase, a potential increase for employers for national insurance, and just a few other tax reviews that this government is planning, and they are justifying that, saying that there's a £40 billion black hole. And the Tories are saying they should stop lying. It's bogus. They just want to increase taxes, and that had been their plan from the beginning, justifying what Rishi Sunak had said. I don't know what the response of the Labour Party would be if they can justify, because again, they also accused the Tories of hiding facts from the British people and being responsible for this £40 billion black hole. So it'd be interesting to see how that back and forth and how it end and what the reception reaction of the British people would be to increase tax rates, whether it's justified or not. But very quickly as well, paying our condolences to Liam Payne's family, One Direction star who died in Argentina, was said to have fallen off the third floor of a hotel. The Argentinian hotel had said they're going to open up investigations into that. He was part of the very famous boy band One Direction. His mates, a lot of condolences have come out around the world, yes. So sad to hear that.
Okay, very quickly before we go. Now, talking about age in the United States, President Jimmy Carter, cast his vote yesterday through the mailbox, and he achieved his dream of living to 100 and also voting for Kamala Harris. So that's that, about talking about age. Elon Musk has given the Trump campaign $75 million, and now he says he's going to support Trump. In England, Reeves, yes, it's all about money. But the black hole used to be 22 billion pounds. Now they say it's 40 billion pounds. You expect the Tories to resist, to say it is not true. But she wants to increase capital gains tax, national insurance tax, and the issue is whether Labour is keeping its promise to the voters. Keir Starmer and Reeves are saying they have not violated their promise to workers. After all, they have the employment bill that they are just introducing. But the Institute of Directors, in the story you quoted, is saying that this is an assault on business and that jobs and wages will be affected. That's the main focus of that story. Anyway, thank you very much, Adefemi. Good to see you in England. Here today, there tomorrow. Very good.